we go. What up? I'm here, Tony Crow, with my first episode of Knicks and Bruises. I have my special guest, Josh, aka Oakley Foolio, aka Josh Kellerman, aka ESPN Josh. How's it going, Josh? Thank you for coming on.
All of the above. Just name me, all of them. Josh Whitlock, all of that. What's up? What's up, Tony Crow? What's up, family? MBK fam that's out there. Those watching. I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to get this thing started, man. It's been a work in progress. Had a couple of videos done and wasn't able to transfer them. I have to redo them. But I'm glad you was available, and I'm excited to get this going. So Knicks and Bruises. The basis of the channel was to speak to my fellow Knicks fans. I know we've gone through like a rough time being Knicks fans.
Have we?
Man, hearing it from our friends that are fans of other teams, and it's just been a rough stretch. So I want to detail a couple of you guys' worst Knicks memories, moments, experiences, all that kind of thing. So the floor is yours, man. Wherever you want to start, however you want to start. Let me hear some of your worst Knicks bruises.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been a rough go, like you said. Tough. Pretty much the last 20 years, it's been really, really tough to be a Knicks fan. After coming up so close in the 90s and almost getting that championship that we crave, it's just been downhill basically since the turn of the century. So the moments that I have here are going to be within the last 20 years, because that's with the modern day Knicks fan, the most that's what we hate, and we hate talking about, and we hate reliving. I have 5 moments here. 5. I'm going to do a countdown style, so from 5 to 1. And pretty much, I have 3 of them, however, 3 of these moments that are honorable mentions that could have made the list, but I didn't want to put them on there for one reason or another. Okay. And the first one that I want to start with, and I think probably started this downhill turn of events, is when we traded away Patrick Ewing back in 2000. Franchise, the franchise, we drafted him first overall in 1985 out of Georgetown. And he basically changed the fortunes of our franchise. But before him, the Knicks were, they were decent. They had Bernard King, but, drafting him, that pretty much propelled us into that next level to be that perennial playoff contender and competing for a championship almost every year, beginning in like 1990, I would say, all the way up until 1999 when we got to our last NBA Finals. So I think that one is an honorable mention. I didn't want to put it on there because, if you want to talk about one of the worst moments in franchise history, that could be it. It could be it. But I just wanted to hold that one off. And then the other 2 are kind of similar. They're signings, free agent signings that we had back in 2006. And that is signing of Jared Jeffries and Jerome James. We signed them in the same offseason. 5 years, $30 million. Now, I know $30 million doesn't sound like a lot right now, but back then that was a pretty hefty contract, for guys on the free agent market. And Jerome James and Jared Jeffries were probably 2 of the worst players to ever put on a uniform, if not an NBA uniform. And, we know what turned out after that. So those moments I didn't put on here because I have other stuff, and we'll talk about it. As we go on.
At least Jared Jeffries had some good moments. You know what I mean? He had some good moments. Not playoff moments, but he had some good moments. He had some surprise games.
I don't know about that.
Hey, Jerome James, I feel you on that one though.
Yeah, the reason why those 2 stand out to me is because that offseason 2006, the Knicks were, I guess, in rebuilding mode, but they didn't have any draft picks. They had no draft capital. They had the highest payroll in the NBA for a long period of time. I want to say for like 5 years in a row, they had the highest payroll. And those 2 guys were, the cream of the crop as far as who we signed. You know what I mean? And obviously the team didn't do well, in subsequent years with those guys on the team. So that's the reason why, those guys are honorable mentions for me at least.
I hear you.
But starting off number 5, and we're counting down. I'm going to start off number 5. I think this moment right here, it's Knicks related, although it is not directly a Knicks moment. It's Knicks related. But I think this moment right here is so profound because it basically highlighted the fact, about how terrible the team has been. And at number 5, I have the Nets signing Kyrie and KD in the last offseason, June 30th, 2019. The Knicks cleared out all this cap space. They traded away Porzingis, which was another terrible move. And they created all this cap space in hopes of signing KD and Kyrie. You had James Dolan going on the Michael Kay show saying that we're gonna get guys to come here. We're gonna build this thing the right way and have a superstar in the Garden for a change. And we completely dropped the ball. And not only did we drop the ball, we dropped the ball to the guys right across the river, the Brooklyn Nets. And that showed that we basically almost kind of lost this city and lost, a lot of fans. We lost a lot of fans that went over there and swapped over to be a Brooklyn Nets fan. So at number 5, I have the Nets and signing KD and Kyrie. And the jury is still out on that move. We still have a lot to figure out as far as what's going to happen because those guys just picked up another guy, James Harden. And we're still rebuilding. Our team is not going to be doing that well this season. But, I have that on there because that shows, that there's another team right across the river that's willing to compete and take over New York, so to speak. So we'll see what happens with that one.
Okay.
And at number 4, this one is kind of hit me to the core. And the reason why I have it at number 4 and not higher on the list is because the Knicks actually won the game. They won the game that night. And they also hired Leon Rose as the president of basketball operations, turning the page on the whole 20 years of Steve Mills in the organization. And at number 4, I have the Spike Lee incident, the entrance incident or the controversy or whatever you want to call it. March 2nd, 2020, right before the pandemic hit, right before they suspended the season, right before we could have did the 50th anniversary of the championship in 1970. As we all know, Spike Lee is probably the greatest Knicks fan there is. He's been repping us in the movie since 1984. Yeah, and She's Gotta Have It, as the character, and She's Gotta Have It. He was arguing that, Bernard King was better than Larry Bird, which was kind of absurd, but that just shows how loyal he was to this team. He was coming to games when he was a shorty, sneaking into Madison Square Garden up in those blue seats. You know what I mean? Since day one, this guy has just been one of us. And the incident that happened, basically, Spike Lee has been using the same entrance that he has been coming through since he became a season ticket holder, which is now known as the employee entrance or the disabled entrance. He's been using that same entrance for a long time. And they scanned his ticket to get in the game. And they allowed him to go up the elevator. And then it was a problem once he was in the building, about to head to his seat. They said that, you have to leave the building because you're not allowed to come through that entrance and then re-enter the building 2 blocks down, which I thought was just completely absurd. For that to happen to someone like Spike Lee, who's been spending his hard-earned money, as the great director that he is, Oscar-winning director, to leave the arena and come back in. Like they tried to play him. I wasn't feeling that. And of course, it was a black eye to the organization because the team had just got a win. They just signed a new president of basketball operations, and the only thing that was talked about was Spike Lee. So I have that one at number 4. Number three. Wow, this one I remember because I remember watching the game and I was like, "Yo, this is crazy! I can't believe this is going on right now." And I think this night pretty much summed up, everything that was happening at the time as far as the organization was concerned. And December 16th, 2006, it is the infamous Nuggets versus Knicks brawl with Carmelo Anthony, Marty Collins, all of those guys. And Jared Jeffries, yeah, the Jersey rip, and Nate Robinson, the fight that happened that took place into the crowd. Not to mention, this happened like right after the Malice at the Palace. So it was crazy. Everybody was going to be talking about it. They was talking about, was the NBA going to lose control? There was a kind of a racial component to it that was put out there by Steve Francis. So this was definitely big news, and I think it definitely was a black eye for the organization. The reason why I had this at number 3, the Knicks were trailing by 19 in the fourth quarter. The game was over. The Knicks were getting blown out pretty much for the entirety of the game. J.R. Smith stole the ball, or there was a turnover that was committed, stole the ball. He had a wide open fast break layup or dunk attempt. Marty Collins came back behind him and fouled him like crazy, like just Bush League, like crazy foul. And basically that incited, those two getting into each other's faces. And Nate Robinson jumping in, trying to, this dude is like 4 feet tall, looking up at J.R. Smith like, yo, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And basically that's how it happened. The fight spilled out into the crowd. They were fighting each other. And then once everything was broken up, somehow Carmelo got away and landed a Mike Tyson type right hook to the jaw of Marty Collins that was heard all around the world, all throughout the Garden. And just an overall ugly incident for the organization, for the NBA. And it happened at Madison Square Garden. Like
That's interesting, man. That's an interesting, number 3. Because, I remember that game 100% too. Like, watching it live, and I understood the foul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was old school Knicks basketball right there.
Yeah.
So what is it? Is it the foul? Is it the fight? Like, what puts that so high on your list?
So the reason why I chose this moment specifically, because I think that was a culmination of everything that was happening at the time with the organization. Like, if you think Isaiah Thomas was the president of basketball operations, he fired Larry Brown, took over as the head coach, and everything that happened with Isaiah Thomas, that era, that's probably one of the worst eras of Knicks basketball ever. Like, completely, we mentioned the Jared Jeffries signing, the Jerome James signing, the Eddie Curry trade, bringing in Steve Francis to play the 2-point guard backcourt with Marbury. Marbury and Isaiah Thomas getting into it on the plane. Just so many different things at the time that was just terrible for the organization. I think that moment right there summed up the frustrations of not just the players and those within the organization, but the fans. Like, we were like, yo, like, this is wild. Like, why does this have to happen? Everything over and over come crashing down on our team. And it was just a bad era for us, overall. And little did we know that Carmelo Anthony would be joining us, a few years later, coming to join this team in another, questionable trade, but that's a different story. And it's just that moment kind of summed up everything. That's when you started hearing the fire Isaiah chants. The fan base was just fed up, and it showed. The players were fed up, and it showed on the court. So that's the reason why I had that as number 3. To sum up the entire Isaiah Thomas era. Okay. At number two, this one right here has been pretty much labeled probably the worst free agent signing in Knicks history. You could probably, that one, the Jerome James one, the Jared Jeffries one, are all up there. But this one right here, I think many Knicks fans could agree would probably be the worst free agent signing in Knicks history. And that is Joakim Noah. 4 years, $72 million. Phil Jackson wanted to bring him in to be a defensive anchor. And I think Joakim Noah only played in less than 40 games for the Knicks his entire 4-year contract. We're still paying him to this day because of the stretch provision of his contract, the CBA and all that nonsense. But we signed him 4 years, $72 million. 7 months later, he had knee surgery that put him out. And then the month after that, he was suspended for, drug policy infraction. And then the next year, he, tore his rotator cuff. So basically, this guy just did not live up to his contract. He didn't play. Basically did not play. And it was just probably one of the worst things that we've seen. We thought we turned the page with the Phil Jackson era. But this was more of the same. Signing up washed up players to be something that they're not. And overpaying for them as well. And then everything basically came to an end when he cursed out Jeff Hornacek and told him, like, I hate, and basically that was the end of Joakim Noah. And we cut him, and then we still had to pay him the remainder of his contract, which Jim Dolan apparently doesn't have a problem with doing. He pays his people. And yeah, that was probably the low light of the Phil Jackson era in New York. So that's my number 2. All right. Any thoughts on my list so far? Any thoughts?
I had a thought on your number 5, but before I said anything, I needed to get through the list.
Okay.
I didn't want to spoil the list, but
okay.
You only got one left, so
Now this one right here, I think is probably I have it at number 1. This is my number 1 because when I seen this happen, I just was like, how do we let this happen? How does this, and it was on national TV at that, wow. So I'm just going to get to it. At number 1, February 8th, 2017, the infamous Charles Oakley incident. The infamous Charles Oakley incident. I have that as my number 1 worst moment as a Knicks fan throughout the last 20 years. Now, people often disagree with me on this. They say whether Charles Oakley was in the wrong or, whatever the case may be, the Knicks were right in doing what they did and all of that. To me, I just think it was terrible. So the Knicks were playing on national TV. They were playing the Clippers against Doc Rivers. Kristaps Porzingis was at the foul line shooting some free throws. And all of a sudden, you hear the crowd go, oh, like a fight broke out at the lunchroom or something back in the day, You know what I'm saying? You hear tables moving, chairs moving. And the crowd, the camera, the national TV camera on ESPN tuned into the crowd. And Mike Breen, who's one of our home announcers, who's also an announcer for ESPN, goes, that's Charles Oakley fighting the security, And then the camera, after, looking at the first 2 shoves and and the guards picking up Oakley, carrying them out, they swapped back over and they looked at Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers was just shaking his head. And then it just was an ugly black eye for the organization. You have someone who put their heart and soul on the floor back in the 90s. And we all, it's been widely, speculated that the problems that him and James Dolan has had over the years, whether Oakley wanted a position in the organization and it's all of that stuff. And for that to happen on national TV, it just showed how much of an inept organization that we are, how bad, how much of a hot garbage dumpster fire that we were as an organization. And I still support Oakley to this day. I think Oakley, and with the Knicks statement put out, I thought it was trash, calling them an alcoholic and all that stuff that was just garbage, unprofessional for the Knicks organization. And it all started at the top, and that's James Dolan. He's the reason why that took place. And I just, that can't happen. That doesn't happen to the Lakers and Jack Nicholson or any fan of the Miami Heat, Rick Ross or DJ Khaled. That doesn't happen to those guys. It only happens to us because we have an incompetent owner. And this list basically highlights the fact that our owner has been absolutely terrible for our organization throughout the past 20 years. So I thought that was the moment right there, that beef with James Dolan that needed to be highlighted over the rest. So that's my list, man. What do you think?
Well, number 1, nobody can tell you you're wrong on this show because this is your list,
right?
You know what I mean? And that's why I'm doing this, so I could get everybody's different views. And let me start with the number 5. And my question is, because you said Kyrie and Durant signing with the Nets,
right?
Is it exclusively them? We're not getting them, or is Porzingis being traded? Is that included?
It's all of the above. It's all of the above. And I think the icing on the cake for it was that they went to Brooklyn. That was the thing. They went to Brooklyn. They went to the crosstown supposed rivals who, came to Brooklyn to rival us. And we've been hearing the rumblings over the years because the Knicks have been so bad. And the Nets have been fairly decent. They made the ridiculous trade to bring in KG and all of them. But the Nets were in the playoffs. And we faced the Nets in the playoffs. We beat them. But the Nets were, in the playoffs for some time. Kenny Atkinson had the organization going, him and Sean Marks. And they actually built what we're trying to build right now, a good team, young, that plays hard. And they created the cap space to go out and sign 2 of the guys that were supposed to come to us. You know what I mean? And what made it worse was the fact that they went to Brooklyn. That was the that was the key right there, that they went to Brooklyn. And then the Porzingis trade, it was ridiculous to begin with. That adds to it. And the fact that the owner went out there and the Knicks basically went out there and was like, yo, we saved up all this money because we want to get some guys in here. And nobody came. Julius Randle, like,
so
no.
that was going to be my next question. So it's including signing of Julius Randle, like it's all combined in one.
All of that with the icing on the cake being that they went to Brooklyn. Like, because people can make the argument, well, what about LeBron going to Cleveland or going to Miami back in 2010? Miami's not Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Miami's not Brooklyn. This is a city that originally had one basketball team in it, that no one was ever challenging the Knicks to do anything throughout the years in this city because there was no other team. Looking at other big markets, you have two teams in LA for almost every sport. The same with New York, with the exception of basketball. And then when Brooklyn came, that gave, the Knicks a run for their money. And for those guys to go to Brooklyn and not us, I just think that shouldn't have happened like that.
I hear you. I know a lot of people are going to have specifically KP being traded high on their, their bruises. KD, I mean, I ain't gonna front. I was tight, but I was tight for like a day. Like, you know what I mean? After that, it was like middle finger to y'all. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. For real.
Yeah.
And all the other things I could say bad. You know what I mean? Not wishing nothing bad, but Kyrie soft. He's scared of the pressure. That was me. That was me.
And I think a lot of Knicks fans to this day, and I'm not saying you or anybody in particular, but anytime I hear the Knicks fans talk about the Nets and what they're doing, there's always something negative. And I'm like, yo, the Nets did everything that we're trying to do right now. They did it the right way. You know what I mean? They did it the right way, and you can't fault the Nets organization for doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of hype surrounding Brooklyn right now, and they need to win a championship. Do not get me wrong. They need to win that because that's how you justify that trade.
For sure.
And also bringing in James Harden. But for any Knicks fan to hate on what Brooklyn is doing, I just think it's terrible. You know what I mean? And
I'm always going to hate, man. I'm always going to hate.
But why? I don't understand why.
Because they're doing what we want to do. Like, I ain't going for, like, everything you said is true. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. But I'm not going to give them no kudos, no props, none of that. And I mean, if they win it, yeah, they're gonna get my respect for sure. But until they win it, nah. I ain't rooting for them. I'm rooting against them. You know what I mean? Like,
to me, it's like the the Clippers and Lakers situation over in LA, right? The Clippers have been bad for years. Like, undoubtedly, they've been terrible, like awful. Like, I remember, the Clippers always being the worst ranked team in the 2K and NBA Live games. Nobody wanted to play with the Clippers. You know what I mean? They basically have no players in their organization's history that we can point to and be like, yo, that dude was great. You know what I mean? With New York, on the other hand, the Knicks have been so bad for a long period of time. We were the only team in town. We have so much history. We don't have the rings to show for it, but we have so much history throughout the organization. It's New York. You know what I mean? For us to hate on what Brooklyn's doing, to me, I thought bringing another team to New York was awesome for the city. Awesome for Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklynite. I'm from Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, born and raised. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to those from Bed-Stuy out there. And to me, I was excited for the move. You know what I mean? I didn't think that they were going to challenge the Knicks at all for anything. But the Knicks have been so bad.
I ain't gonna lie. I was excited for the move too. Like,
yeah. And their colors, their organization, their logo, the court, how they did it, the Biggie stuff, that's dope. That's dope to me.
I'm not giving them no props though. Like, everything you said is a fact. I ain't even gonna lie. But you're not gonna hear it from me. Not at least not. You know what I mean? Live.
I mean, that's just how I feel.
Not publicly. But I hear you, man. It sucks when you gotta like watch through the window You know what I mean? Can't really talk to nobody about it. Oh,
I get destroyed. I get destroyed for these points all the time by Knicks fans. Knicks fans hate the fact that I bring this stuff up, but it's the truth.
Hey, and it's funny. We talk about doing the flagrant foul with Sim, and I think the main reason I was like, all right, get Josh after I'm like, get Josh. He go is because we weren't seeing eye to eye. Like I wasn't agreeing with a lot of your points, but a lot of your points I do agree with, and I get mad when I agree when I agree with you because I'm like, well, we can't be doing this when we get the show popping. We can't be agreeing. We gotta disagree. But there's quite a few points I definitely agree with you with. What was your number 4 again?
Number 4 was the Spike Lee incident. The Spike Lee elevator entrance. That one.
Yeah, that the reason that pissed me off so much is because even if everything is legitimate where you want to change it, number one, he like you said, he was already in the building, so it's future reference. And their argument was they've told him this several times and he continued, and then this was the one that they like, all right, we keep telling you you're not listening. So, but the optics alone it was horrible. It was horrible. Like if I was a fickle fan, I ain't gonna lie, I would have been left. You know what I mean? I would have jumped ship. I ain't gonna lie. But I'm not a fickle fan. And I've endured, this is why I'm doing this channel. I've endured so much abuse from family, friends, and relatives and everybody just for wearing that hat. You know what I mean? Just for repping my team.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you still a Knicks fan? That like I got family members that's the first thing they ask me. When they see me, it could be a year later, 2 years later, last week. Yo, you still a Knicks fan? You still repping that team? So it's tough for us, man.
It's been tough, man. Yeah, it's been crazy because like me, I'm in the military, I'm in the Navy. I've been away from New York for a long time, and I will walk around with a Knicks hat on. When I'm doing my thing, I'm not at work. I walk around with a Knicks hat. And they were like, "Yo, you like the Knicks?" They were like, "Oh man, like that's crazy." Mostly everybody are Laker fans. Your bandwagon, your Lakers. Your Cleveland Cavalier fans when LeBron was there. Your Celtic fans. And it's just you can't have a conversation with those guys because the Knicks haven't done anything. Like even before this 20 years, and we talk about the 90s, how good the Knicks were. People don't remember that because the Knicks didn't have any championships to show for it. You know what I mean? And I feel like we've never been an organization that prioritized winning. Like the Yankees, the Yankees. Anytime you're thinking about the Yankees, you think of winning championships. Derek Jeter and all those guys. But the Knicks has just been like, yeah, we've had some good teams. They played hard. They played this team style of basketball. But what do we really have to show for it? Like we only have outside of Ewing, the only banners that hang in there are guys that were played in the 70s. You know what I mean? Yeah. For all this history that we've had in this organization, and just nobody else.
And it's crazy when we had it good, like I say good, like the 90s, like you were saying, like at least playoff contenders every year.
Yep.
Like we was dissatisfied then. You know what I mean? Like we still just wanted just get us over that hump. You know what I mean? Like Jordan was out that year. It's like, oh, this is our year, or those 2 years, whatever it was. This is our time. And couldn't get over the hump, but never in my mind would I have imagined it would have went from that to what we endured the last 20 years. Like that is crazy. That is crazy.
It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad when you think about it. Like our fans are loyal. Like you can criticize Dolan, you can criticize anything that the Knicks do. And it's like, you're not a Knicks fan anymore. You're not one of us. You're not one of us. It's like we have fans all over the world. Like Andy, for example. Andy's all the way in Poland. You know what I mean? Poland. You know what I mean? That's crazy. And then you got fans. I watch some of the other podcasts and shows that they have where guys call in, and there's fans calling from all over the place: Jamaica, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Japan, China. You know what I mean? Fans all over the world.
That's the great part.
Yeah, it's like people love the Knicks, and you wouldn't even think that based on the way the team's been playing the last 20 years. But it's the truth, man. And one more thing I'm going to say about that, you mentioned back in '94, the UN days and everything like that. The Rangers won that year. The Knicks and the Rangers won the finals at the same time.
I remember.
The same time.
Like, I remember saying, like, this is New York's year. Like, I remember it, saying it and thinking it, and it almost happening. Speaking of which, that's on my list of, like, one of my worst moments is watching the finals, at least trying to. Yeah. And this white Bronco is just taking over the airwaves.
Yeah.
And I'm like changing the channel. I'm like, if it's on every other channel, why are y'all interrupting the game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm pissed off. I don't care who OJ is. Like, who's OJ? I don't care. Yeah. Like, this is not important to me. The Knicks is in the finals right now.
Yep. And they won that game too. That was what game 5. That was game 5. They won it to go up 3-2 on Houston. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but in my mind, that's why we lost the series.
Because of that right there.
Yeah, it just I didn't get to see them win the game. You know what I mean? So I was happy we was up, but then I had to watch. Like, why couldn't OJ do that the game that we lost? Or one of the next 2 games. Like, it bruised me, man. And that's why I never liked OJ afterwards. Like, it was like, okay.
Yeah, that just was a crazy time. I mean, I was what, 3 years old, 3 years old back then. So I was young. I'm probably still young, depending on the audience. You know what I mean? Because I get told I'm young all the time. But yeah, I don't remember too much of what happened back then, but just looking back on it and thinking back on, like, the time, you know, '94, like Knicks, Rangers, OJ, you know, everything that was happening during that same time period, the summer of 1994, and how crazy the New York would have been if the Knicks would have won and the Rangers would have won at the same time. Like, man, that would have been wild. That would have been wild for the city.
And then 2000, I saw we was going to the finals against the Lakers. I just knew it was going to be New York, LA.
Yeah.
I just knew it was. And that was the block, right?
That was the block. Yep.
That's extremely high on my list. That crushed me.
Yeah, that was 2000. I mean, remember, Phil Jackson was supposed to come on to be our coach at one point. Phil was supposed to come with us. He was supposed to leave Chicago, and he was supposed to take over the Knicks, but he left to go join the Lakers, and the rest is history. So I think that probably would have been crazy too, you know, the Van Gundy versus Phil, you know, but everything went downhill after the 2000 season when we got rid of Ewing. Yeah.
Oh man. So again, this channel is not to bash the Knicks, it's really to get some of our worst memories. Like, let's talk about it, let's get it out, and let's let it go, and let's focus on what I believe is going to be a bright future. We've done a lot of good things, good acquisitions in the front office. At least it feels that way. You know, only time will tell. We've probably felt that way at least a couple of times over the last 20 years, and things didn't pan out. But I'm back to being optimistic, and I believe in this front office. I believe in a lot of our young guys. I think building and keeping our young guys, I think that's something that we haven't done. We haven't done in you know, a lot of years. Charlie Ward, the last rookie that we re-signed, I believe.
Charlie Ward, Mr. Heisman.
Like, when you think back of how long ago that was, we just talking about the 90s. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not to mention we haven't had many draft picks over that time period as well.
Right.
But
and the draft picks that we've actually drafted have not been that good either.
And that's what I mean. It's like we had limited selection and then we didn't select well.
Right.
So with this current roster and not this, let's not say this current team, this current situation, what was your thoughts coming into the season as far as win totals? What were you looking forward to? And so far, how would you assess the team?
So coming into this season, I was not as optimistic as I am right now because I think it was still a lot that we have yet to see to say how successful we're going to be. And what I mean by that is normally the Knicks would hire, this Leon Rose is the fourth or fifth different top guy that we hired in the last 20 years. And every time we've hired a new guy, they would always put out there, oh, it's changing. It's going to be something different now. Phil Jackson, oh, it's going to be different. We're bringing an 11-time champ. He used to play for the Knicks back in the day. He got 11 rings. 2 of them came from, 13 rings. 2 of them came from when he was playing. And things will be different. And it never turned out to be that way. I think when the Knicks first hired Leon Rose, to me, it was just more of the same. And the same with Tom Thibodeau. It was just more of the same. And I didn't want Tom Thibodeau to be the coach. I was more of a fan of Atkinson and or Mark Jackson because I think those guys did the best as far as rebuilding and putting in a new culture in the organization rather than Tom Thibodeau. But that's the past. So coming into the season, I looked at the roster. I didn't think the roster was that good to compete. I think Vegas had us over under. Or I think the win total that Vegas had for us is about 22 games, 22 and a half. And I think the Knicks were probably going to be at that, if not worse. So I didn't have high expectations. And then start the season, Tom Thibodeau's getting the most out of these guys. These guys are playing defense, and they're doing everything that Knicks fans love, that old gritty style. The game has really slowed down. They were tops in the league in three-point percentage. So Tom Thibodeau was getting the most out of these guys, and I had to really bite my tongue a little bit about Thibodeau because he basically proved me wrong and proved a lot of guys wrong. And then now the Knicks have come back to earth. Their lack of talent is starting to show. So I think that they're the front office is there. I like the fact that the front office and the coaching staff is on the same page. There doesn't seem to be any backstabbing going around as far as the front office and the coaching is concerned. We still have a long ways to go building a roster. The roster is definitely not there yet. RJ Barrett has taken some leaps forward, but he's not ready for anything yet, let alone 38 minutes. I'm not going to even talk about that. So I think we have a ways to go, but it starts with building the roster. I think if everything is in place, like they're saying, let's get some players in here. Let's get some star players in here because in today's NBA, you gotta have stars. You gotta have, perennial all-star guys in order to win. And right now the Knicks don't have that,
So did you agree with 22 wins initially?
I thought it was gonna be worse.
Okay, and how you feel now? If you had to put a number on our wins,
it's kind of hard to say. The Knicks aren't going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs with the roster that they have. Maybe if they make the play-in game, I wouldn't be surprised. But I just think that even if we do get there, it's like we're going to get swept in the first round because we're not that talented. I'll give the Knicks this. I'll say that the Knicks are gonna win more than 22 games, but less than 30.
Okay.
They'll win more than 22, but they'll win less than 30, and it's purely because of talent or lack thereof. They simply don't have the roster right now or the talent to compete with the guys in the Eastern Conference. Not yet. They could get there. They have everything in place, but right now, as presently constructed, they don't have that.
So let's say you get this assistant GM job, right?
Okay.
So what would your advice be to Leon?
Right now or prior to the season?
No. We know about prior to the season.
Oh, okay.
You and I were both on somewhat of the same page with that one as well. But that's the past. Moving forward. Let's say Josh should I make a move now, or should I let the season play out and make my moves in the off season?
Right now, they shouldn't make a move. I think if they make a move right now, it'll kind of be like just a reactionary kind of move, based on everything that we've seen that Brooklyn did. I think right now you have to stay the course. It's no turning back now. This is the road that they wanted to go on. They wanted to not make any trades. They wanted to stay put and not do anything crazy. So stay the course. Right now, just making a move, basically, you put yourself into a hole, because the guys that are out there, I'm thinking maybe like the Bradley Bills and players like that. They're gonna it's gonna take a haul to get players like that in here. And are you willing to give up multiple draft picks for Bradley Bill and RJ Barrett or a Julius Randle? You know what I mean?
And if you are, then why weren't you?
Exactly.
I'm with you, Josh. I'm with you.
Exactly. So I think they stay the course. Thibodeau's getting the most out of these players right now. If I wouldn't be surprised, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks are already out of it at the trade deadline and they start taking calls for Julius Randle. I think any playoff team or championship competitive team could use Julius Randle on their roster. And on top of that, his money could come off the books potentially this offseason. I know a lot of guys have already signed, but any team that's trying to win a championship could take on Julius Randle and bring him in for his services, and the Knicks could take back some picks. That's what they were doing anyway. So I don't see that off the table with the organization right now. But I don't think it's going to happen, just because with all the free agents that are off the table this offseason, I don't think there's much of a market out there for Julius Randle and a team that is looking to save money. So I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think they should have sort of a knee-jerk reaction to make moves right now in the middle of the season. I don't think it benefits the team.
Okay, so that being said, you say stay put. Only make potential moves for draft picks.
Right.
And that. So what would be your plan coming into the off season?
My plan coming into the offseason is to try to sign someone to improve the roster. If not, try to trade for someone to improve the roster. But again, if you're gonna, the Knicks got to figure out what they want to do. It's either you stay the course and you keep riding it out and you draft well, you continue to draft well, or you swing for the fences. Right now, they've decided to stay the course, and I think they should continue to do that. And if the time comes or an opportunity presents itself where we can be able to flip Randle for let's say a Bradley Bill, or flip RJ for a Bradley Bill. Bradley Bill is someone I would trade RJ Barrett for. Let me just get that out the way. Let me just put that on the table and let everybody know that. I would trade RJ Barrett for Bradley Bill. 100%. 100%. You got a guy that's 25 years old, entering the prime of his career, should have made the All-Star team last season. And, he's balling. I think he's averaging he leads the league in scoring right now, 31 points, 31.2 or something like that. Last time I checked. He fits the timeline for this roster, the timeline, so to speak, as Knicks fans call it. And he will be perfect. He will be perfect for this roster. But I don't think you get a guy like Bradley Beal without flipping Julius Randle and or RJ Barrett with some picks attached to it. But outside of that, I think Kawhi Leonard is going to be available. I think he would be a perfect Tibbs guy. Perfect. You got that two-way wing. Kawhi Leonard is relatively young compared to the other free agents that are, or big name guys that are going to be out there or were out there. And I think from a half court perspective, because Tibbs loves his half court, Kawhi Leonard is perfect. It doesn't get any more perfect in the move than going out and getting someone like Kawhi Leonard that has championship pedigree, that can play defense. He's going to lock up the other team's best player. And, I think that would be perfect for the organization. But anything short of those two, I guess they could make some moves, but nothing flashy, nothing crazy that's, going to change the fortunes of the organization.
Obviously, Kawhi is number one on my list. I just think I just try to put that in the back of my head because
it
was traumatizing.
Yeah,
what we went through last year,
right,
or 2 years ago, whenever that was. So Bradley Beal, I agree with you again. I probably would trade on RJ. I wouldn't trade RJ and Randle together for Beal though. I
Why
think
not?
I don't think that moves us. I don't think that moves the needle enough. I value Randall a lot. I value RJ as well. So I think I'd rather keep those two and use cap money and try to get somebody like you said, free agency. And if we miss, we miss, and just keep building. Um, I don't know if I would give up them both because I don't know if that moves the needle enough. Now, granted, Bill's balling out, like you said, leading the league in scoring, but they're not winning. So what makes us think? You know what I mean? Or you think, or like, are we going to be winning with him with a lesser supporting cast? No RJ,
So
no Randall.
so let me. This is people that make this argument against people that often make the argument against what I wanted in the offseason and making a trade for basically any player that's on a losing team. They always bring up the argument that, well, that team's not winning, so if they come to us, we're not going to win either. And I just think that is probably the worst argument you can use when talking about bringing in a superstar player, a player of that magnitude, right? The Wizards don't play any defense. That's the reason why they're losing. They score a bunch of points, but they don't play any defense. So I think you can tell the Knicks, main thing the Knicks need right now is scoring, and they need somebody outside of Julius Randle to put the ball in the hole. They don't have that. Bringing in someone of that magnitude gives you that, along with the defensive philosophies that we already have. So it's not like if we bring in those guys, we're gonna start losing too. Like I don't think it was. And I'm gonna bring up.
My argument is only that we're losing Randall, who is out. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we need somebody to score with Randall. So if we're getting rid of Randall for somebody who scores, we're gonna still need somebody to score with Beal.
No, I understand. I understand that point. I'm just saying that that's probably what it's going to take to get Bill. If the Knicks are able to pull off the deal and give up RJ Barrett and some draft picks, then I'll be for that too. Because then you got Bill and you got Randall. But I just think a lot of Knicks fans that make the argument that their team is losing, so when they come to us, we're gonna be losing too, or there's a potential for us to be losing because we added those guys. I don't think that's fair. And I'm gonna bring up Russell Westbrook's name because the biggest opposition to, well, the biggest reason there was opposition to me wanting to bring in Russell Westbrook in the trade is because look what he did with Houston. Houston got to the second round and they lost. They couldn't get past the Lakers. And I'm like, yo, Russell Westbrook had one of his best seasons in his career statistically, and the Rockets got rid of all their bigs. It's not Russell Westbrook's fault that they lost the series. It was the fact that they had a limited roster and the Lakers basically outmatched them. That's the reason why they lost. That's the reason why they lost that series.
Josh, me and you, we could talk about this all day, but it won't be an argument. It won't be a debate because I was on the same page. My response was, well, look what he did in OKC.
Yeah,
that was my response.
But even then, they'll be like, well, he got to the first round and he couldn't get out of the first round for all these years after KD left. And I'm like, yo, the Knicks haven't been to the first round in forever. So that's an upgrade.
We're on the same page. I was with you.
And you combine that with the fact that the Knicks need a guard right now. They need a guard. They need a point guard. Like I don't understand how Knicks fans could say, "Oh, we don't want that guy." He gives us everything that we need right now, almost everything.
I agree, but
we got the money.
Let's go under the bridge. Let's talk about what we could. Let me ask you this. Let's see if this will be an agreement or a debate. What's your thoughts on Kyle Lowry?
Kyle Lowry, veteran point guard, definitely help this team. I think anybody at this point will help our point guard situation right now. The question is, what would Toronto be willing to take for Kyle Lowry? I wouldn't want to give up any draft picks, but you already know that's pretty much how that's going to play out. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think they gave up some draft picks to get Kawhi in there, so they're going to need to replenish and then restock up with that. I think it'll help us, but the question is, what would we be willing to give up? If we're not going to give up a lot for Westbrook or say, a Bradley Beal, what are we going to give up for Kyle Lowry? Because Kyle Lowry is worse than those two guys. You know what I mean? So
Mm, he's not. He's not a better player than those two guys. Yeah, I agree.
Right. That's
When
what
you
I'm
say,
saying.
I know, but when you say worse, it just sounds like, you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Tomato, tomato.
But because I feel like he could do a lot for this team. And I it's tricky because he's a free agent next year, right? So it's like, do you wait and just go after him?
That's what I would do. What's the sense of that's Carmelo all over again right there? I mean, and it's worse than Carmelo because Kyle Lowry is 30-something years old. So why would you trade something for a guy that is potentially a rental kind of player? You know what I mean? So I would just wait. I think the way Toronto is going right now, and they're losing, and you can tell that the championship days are over. You wait for a guy like that. He's probably going to want to leave and make some money. You know what I'm saying?
Would you do it if it was relatively cheap?
Well, what does that mean? That's different. That means different to a lot of people.
When I say relatively cheap, I say, let's say 2 second-round picks.
Absolutely.
And whatever.
Oh, you weren't done yet. I'm sorry.
No. Well, we gotta match some of the salary because we have about 18 million, I think, in space. So we would need another 12. So whatever the filler is to cover that 12 million. And I don't even think it has to be exactly 30. It's like you could leave 10% off or something. So it might even be like another 8 million. So I don't know, whatever, that I don't know, Dennis Smith, Frank, you know what I mean? These are the guys that aren't really playing, but they take up what, $4, $5, $6 million, and then, you know what I mean? Whomever else is at $1 million. That's when I say cheap. Not players that are in our rotation right now.
So
and 2 second-round picks.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Or do you think that's reaching because he's available next year? Because I'm about this year, honestly. If
Same. I'm about this year as well, but I don't like trading for players that are on the last years of their deal. I just personally don't like that. Like, I just think because you can go get them in free agency, the Knicks are going to have the money to spend. And the type of season that they're having right now, even though it's not the way we want it to go, they're doing the best with what they have. And I get that we need to have some sort of upgrade at the point guard position, but honestly, at this point, I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't put those draft picks out there for a guy that we can go out and get in the offseason. There's always going to be players available. I know that I've been critical in the organization because they, for some reason, they have all the money in the world and guys don't want to come here. But I think you still have to play that game and not go out and trade all willy-nilly and all crazy unless you're trading for someone that can move the needle. And I think, like you said, moving the needle is important. Bringing Kyle Lowry in here, we'll win a few more games, but he isn't the type of difference maker that's going to take us over the hump. And in this case, the hump is getting to the playoffs. I don't think that he does that.
I actually disagree there. I think he does. I think. See, here's the thing. He's not going to be that 30-point scorer. You know what I mean? Might not even be a 20-point scorer. You know what I mean? But he has certain intangibles. And it was like, I don't want to compare him to Chris Paul, but he has a lot of the same intangibles of a Chris Paul. He's a smart point guard. Like, he relies on that more than athleticism. He's not a great shooter, but he gets hot. I would say whatever a step above streaky is, I wouldn't necessarily call him streaky. A little bit more consistent than that, but not, you know what I mean? He has his woes as well. You know what I mean? But he kind of reminds me of Marcus Smart. He's another guy that I didn't like originally. I didn't like Larry either. But the more I watch him and the more I see what he does, like he might not get you 20 points.
Yeah, they're dogs. They go after it. They're dogs. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I think that alone at the point guard is what we need. Like honestly, if Peyton was just consistent with his jump shot, he could be that type of dog. Like he got a little dog in him. He got no bite.
So and I understand. Listen, I think the Knicks need a point guard for the future. That's 100. That's a fact. Our guard play has not been good. It has not been consistent at all. Like we start off the season, and our guards were playing fairly well. They were doing much better than what we expected them to. Now it's kind of the opposite end. They're not living up to what they're at least should be. So far. But I think the Knicks they're getting open shots. The Knicks are missing wide open shots. So we could talk all day about the point guard play and how the point guard play can improve. But I think most of our offensive problems come from the fact that Thibodeau is still stuck in his ways. Thibodeau is old school, half court. And quite frankly, we don't I think the difference maker in our offense is going to be guys who are effective in the half court. And right now, the Knicks don't have enough of those type of guys. We can talk point guard play all along and all day, but at the end of the day, we don't have enough guys that are effective enough in the half court. Now, if this team was coached by, say, I don't know, Steve Kerr, or I don't want to throw D'Antoni's name out there, but let's say any coach that allows us to run the floor and have a little bit more pace, I think the Knicks would be doing much better. I think they'll be doing much better, and I think they will score up to what their potential is. They wouldn't be as good defensively, but they will definitely score some more points. So I think our coaching philosophy and who we have, on the sidelines, I think that's the bigger reason why our offense is not doing as well, as opposed to not having a point guard. Because the Knicks are getting open shots, and in the beginning of the season, they were tops in the league in 3-point percentage, even though they don't take that many, and they're still getting open looks to this day. You know what I mean? So I just think that it's a sideline issue, and it's also a roster issue. Those two things more than just blaming Elfrid Payton or saying it's a point guard issue. So that's why I wouldn't do the move for Kyle Lowry right now. I would wait for him to become a free agent and go out there and do that, because I don't think Kyle Lowry gets us to the playoffs, because he's not that kind of half-court player.
He's not the run and gun guy either.
I know. No.
I mean, he can play it run and gun, but that's not. I think he's more of a half-court point guard than anything else.
He is, but he's not that half-court player that is going to get us over the hump. Like, for example, like you said, he doesn't score 20 points a game. That's not his thing. His thing is not it's more of teaching and making smart decisions as a point guard, as opposed to being out there. Because the only difference between the Knicks right now and playoffs is one more 20-point scorer. That's the difference. And I think Kyle Lowry, his style of play, even though he's a really good half-court player, he's not that 20-point half-court player that we need on this current team right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think point guard play is important, and the Knicks need to have that. But I think our issues come from who our coach is and us not having that other half-court player. It's kind of a combination of both. And that's why I think the Knicks are going to address in the offseason. But I wouldn't try to trade and try to make it happen right now. I just don't think it's smart for the team right now at this particular moment.
Is there a guy that you would trade for this season? And does that guy get you over the hump, or is it like something for the future?
Maybe Buddy Hield. Only because his shooting, great shooter in the half court. He's someone we can get 20 points from.
Yeah,
as a shooter, as a shooter, you can never have too much shooting. You can never have too much of that in today's NBA. And I think his ability to shoot and stretch the floor, along with Knox, that is going to help us out a lot, because the Knicks have guys that can get to the lane. You know what I'm saying? They have Julius Randle, even though RJ is not necessarily doing it the way he should be doing that. He's a little bit of a threat to get there. And hell, Elfrid Payton gets to the lane sometimes. He's not consistent with that shot, but he's able to get there. So the Knicks have a lot of opportunities from three, and Buddy Hield is a really good three-point, above average to a really good three-point shooter that can give us the spacing we need. And I think his ability to come in and help us and give us that 20 points can get us over the hump. And I know it's crazy. You say you would rather have Buddy Hield than Kyle Lowry right now? Yeah, because I mean, we need that. We need that.
I see your argument. And like I'm not gonna argue against it because I understand why. Um,
And he's younger too. He's
yeah,
20
yeah.
something years old.
I mean, there's he's younger. He could actually score 20 points a game. Like that's not a debate. I mean, I understand why he would definitely be an upgrade at any one of our veterans.
Yep.
At that position. So I understand it. I get it. Do you think that could happen without Julius Randle included?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that can happen.
But So you still think he would get us over the hump?
I think so. I wouldn't make the trade if it includes Julius Randle. I don't think Buddy Hield is that much of a difference maker. Now playing with Julius, I would want him to play with Julius Randle, but swapping those two guys out, I think Julius Randle is a better player than Buddy Hield. So it's going to be, if you make that trade, it's going to be more of a negative than a positive if Julius Randle is included. Now the real question is, do I want to trade RJ Barrett for him? I think that one is kind of where I'm at with, like, RJ Barrett, you got to show up, or I'm ready to send you out of here and bring in someone like Buddy Hield, who's still young and can play your position better than you can play it. Right now, he can do that. You know what I'm saying? So, if the Knicks can be able to pull off that trade without giving up any of those guys, great, perfect. But it has yet to be seen. So this is why I would just not rather make a trade right now anyway. I would just wait till the offseason because the Knicks are right now are in no. They don't have the leverage like they had in the offseason before any of these guys signed, before Westbrook got moved, before Chris Paul got moved, and the Knicks had all this cap space. They had so much leverage. Now the Knicks are they don't have that much leverage and to make any moves right now.
I knew we wasn't making a move when Drew Holiday got moved and what it cost for Drew Holiday.
Right.
Because Drew Holiday was on my list of guys of who I wanted to trade for. And I didn't think it was going to cost that much. Like, you know what I mean? I thought we could have did some under the radar, you know what I mean? Like one pick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe even protected somewhere a couple of years down the line. Like I really thought we could have finessed things and got. So when they got that haul for Holiday, I was like, man, the market is different.
Yeah,
and you can see it. Every trade is like multiple first round picks, and negotiations of what players they want. Like the people are getting the trades they want. Ultimately, like even that Nets trade, I gotta admit, like everybody won. Everybody.
Well, not Brooklyn if they don't win the championship. They gotta win. They gotta win the championship.
I mean, they under the most pressure, but
right.
and that's yet to be determined. But Houston came off.
Oh yeah,
Houston came off with the picks and even flipping for Oladipo.
Yeah,
I think that was nice. I mean, the only, I mean, they got a big risk though. Because they hold all they stars is like injury prone, coming off. I mean, just coming off injuries.
Yeah.
To see if they ever going to be the player they once was.
No, but I think even then, like they're still in rebuilding mode and they have all those picks, so they have the opportunity to still rebuild and retool. You know what I mean? So Houston is still in good shape, and John Wall still makes $40 million. And I mean, I guess he's not living up to his contract because he's missed so many games, but he gets paid $40 million for a reason. He's worth, or his potential is worth $40 million.
I get it. And Boogie is a steal for whatever he's getting paid with his, potential and
Christian Wood.
Yeah, and I mean, he got paid, but they well off. They well off. I think they're gonna surprise a lot of people if those guys stay healthy. So no moves this year.
Right.
You want to let things play out. It's just so sickening, man. I'm ready. I'm ready for a change, man. Not necessarily talking about the roster. I'm just saying like what we've witnessed over these last several decades. Like
Right.
I'm ready for progress and like I don't care about a playoff sweep, man. I just want to get in there. I want our young guys to understand
To play those games, to play those
what
meaningful
it
games.
feels like.
Yeah.
Because not for nothing, you can't name me a superstar in this league that didn't become a superstar like in the playoffs. Like that's when you become a superstar.
Yep.
There's nobody who got swept, you know what I mean, or didn't make the playoffs, or like it's moments in the playoffs that propel you into superstardom. I say the closest guy might be and people will argue it, might be Devin Booker, what he did in the bubble last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Might have, but he still got to do it in the playoffs. And now they got Chris Paul, and you know what I mean? Like
they're going to the playoffs. There's no doubt in my mind. Phoenix is going to the playoffs, and they're gonna shock some teams. They're going to be really dangerous in the playoffs because of Booker and Chris Paul.
So that's when he'll become the superstar. But he was itching there with that bubble performance.
Yeah, and he also dropped 60, I think, last year or the year before that. Dropped 60 points on whoever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you, Josh.
No doubt, man. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
This was fun. This is episode 1. I gotta redo the one I did with Sim. I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. Anytime you want to come on, I'll shoot you a message. If there's something to talk about, we'll talk about it.
Absolutely, man. Always a pleasure. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get this thing going right. And man, I'm sure we got a lot of good content coming soon.
Yes, flagrant foul. We still working on that one. Mm-hmm. Shout out to MBK, fam, Sim, everybody, Eru, Legion of Knicks, Freezy, Savvy, everybody. Shout out to
Cleveland, man,
my Divine, everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody's welcome. Shout out to the chat. Yo, Blackest Time. Peace.
Peace.
Oh.